Hi everybody! I hope you're all having a good day. My name is Huika and welcome to the first episode of Let's Dumbify Blender. In today's episode, we will be going over the 3D view of Blender and some other shortcuts along the way. Now keep in mind that I'm outside recording this, so you might hear some background noise. Keep in mind also, in order to follow along with the tutorial, you need an external mouse to follow along with the tutorial. It's highly recommended do not use a laptop mouse pad. It's not going to work. You can buy one, you can buy a USB mouse for like $1 or $5 USD. If by any chance you're a child, you're a minor, and you can't buy your own mouse, talk to your parents about it. If you can't get a mouse yourself, I can't really do much about that. And also, I am using a Windows 10 laptop. That's an MSI laptop. But keep in mind, there are a lot of laptops out there that do not run Blender quite well, or desktops even. So if your laptop or desktop or your computer lags on Blender, highly recommend you check out trying to make Blender a little, optimized for low specs. But I highly recommend also to upgrade your computer if you're dealing with too much lag, okay? And also, Androids and iPhones, they do not work with Blender at all. So if you only have a phone, you cannot use Blender. You will have to use another 3D program that might be on the phone, but even then, 3D modeling is never the best with a phone. So keep that in mind. But for now, let's just continue on with the tutorial. So right here, this is our splash screen. This is basically where we can, make a new file, open up recent files if you have any. And I have all these files here from a recent 3D stream that I had, which you can check out on my YouTube channel if you want to see how I model my new outfit. Keep in mind I use a sculpt brush and all that. I basically sculpted my outfit, which is not really absolute beginner friendly. So if you are trying to look for absolute beginner stuff specifically, you can still look at the stream, and I do have some some pointers, like some advice throughout the stream, but it's highly recommended that absolute beginners do not follow what I did at that stream, because it's mainly for like intermediate or advanced Blender users once they know what sculpting is and all that. So absolute beginners, please stick with this tutorial. And try not to go too ahead of yourself along the way. Learn the basics before you learn the specifics. So yeah. I'll be using 2.92.0 for this tutorial, but you can use 2.8 or any other version within 2.8 and above. But if you have 2.79 and below, it's highly recommended you update Blender, but you could try following along, but keep in mind you might be lost in certain stuff. Also, there might be some sayings at the bottom of the splash screen that might be like talking about your mouse, whether you click with the left or the right. So you can configure those to your own preference, but you will have to apply your knowledge to follow along with the tutorial if you change any of it. But I'll leave it default because that's how my sayings are, they're default. So yeah. So left click outside of the splash screen. And right here, this is our 3D view. So let me go over some parts of the 3D view that we will be, to be aware about, basically. So this is our cube. This is what we're going to use to turn our models, turn our models into different shapes. So like, make wings and earmuffs and all that, and make anime characters, dog, environment, trees, and all that. This one cube will do all of that. You might be wondering how? Well, think of Play-Doh. Think of the Play-Doh clay that, some kids would play with. You can even look it up if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you think about clay and how you can change it to different shapes, that's exactly how we're going to turn this cube into different shapes. Inside of it has a red and white circle. This is called our 3D cursor. The 3D cursor, think of it as a spawn point for 3D objects. It's just, that's literally where our objects will spawn. Think of a Minecraft bed where you would respawn on the bed when you die. That's exactly what it is, a spawn point. And this thing right here, this is called our camera. Think of a phone camera, whether it's iPhone or Android. That's exactly what this is. It takes pictures and it makes videos, or renders out animations basically. So keep that in mind. Very convenient, very useful. Right here, this is our light, otherwise known as our point light. Think of a lamp that's on your nightstand, or a lamp that you see on Walmart or something like that, or something online. You could Google lighting lamps, and you can literally just see lamps everywhere. Different forms and shapes. That's literally what this is. Literally, that's it. It makes literal light. It just emits on the objects. I'm not sure how dumb I want to make this, but that's just a light. That's it. There are different types of lights, but we're not going to go over those different lights quite yet, but eventually we'll get into that. Now, our environment, this is called our coordinate plane. If you have never went to geometry class, you probably don't know what this is, but now you know what it is. So yeah, if you are in geometry class right now, or you actually like memorized some geometry, this is very convenient. It'll help you understand 3D a lot better. But even then, you don't really need to know too much geometry to 3D model, so heads up right there. But even then, it's best so that it helps you know how shapes change and all that. So we have 3 different axes. We'll have to think about. We won't have to. It's not like you have to like fully memorize the axes and all that. It just comes off naturally. So we have different axes that makes up 3 dimensions, such as the red line for X, the green line for Y, and the blue line for Z axis. They're all there, and it's right here. This is for reference. So keep in mind if you end up forgetting, it's always going to be right here. So very useful. It's very useful. So yeah, and right here, this is going to be our different modes. We have different modes such as object, edit, which will edit our meshes. You know, this is called a mesh model. Some people say mesh, some people call it model. You can say either one, but they literally just means the same thing, mesh model. So if you hear me say mesh, it literally means model, cube, whatever it is. So yeah, keep that in mind. There's gonna be a lot of different wordings when it comes to 3D. So I'm gonna try my best to explain each of those 3D terminologies, otherwise known as vocabularies, or just it's basic English words for 3D. So keep that in mind. Mesh equals model. That's literally it. Mesh equals model, model equals object character thing. So keep that in mind, okay? So on object mode, we're gonna focus on object mode and edit mode for the first part of the series. We'll go over sculpt mode and all this in the future. I personally use sculpt mode myself when I edit my models. If you saw my 3D stream, you would definitely see me use sculpt mode a lot because it's very convenient for what I do. But for absolute beginners, no, do not use this. Don't use this yet. You're not ready. You're not ready yet. But we're gonna focus on these 2 for now, okay? And right here, we really do not need to focus on this area, but we do need to be aware about our different viewports. We have wireframe, solid, material, rendered. Rendered is basically what the camera will be taking pictures of. So what we see here is what the camera here will take a picture of, okay? And material is just showing off the colors and all that, and there's no colors on the cube is white. Solid mode, it's just going to be all gray and all that, so that's pretty much it. And then wireframe is just basically X-ray mode, but just wireframe, so keep that in mind. And yes, X-ray mode is right here if you ever need it, so keep that in mind, alright? So yeah. And right here, this is our tool tab. So we'll be going over the movement and rotations of the objects. So before we do get started with that, also don't mind the dogs barking if you can hear that. But anyways, we're gonna be using, we're gonna actually start off, before we get in depth with the tool tab, let's move around in the 3D view first of all. So let's start off with zooming in and out. So let's start off with moving the scroll wheel. So use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out of the scene. So just like how you would move in a web page when you're scrolling in YouTube and stuff, or Twitter, use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out, just like this, okay? Zoom in and out, in and out, in and out, just like that. And if by any chance you need a video of how to use a scroll wheel, please let me know. I will give you a video. So yeah. Now, with that, since you now can scroll, use your index finger and just lightly move the scroll wheel up and down to scroll. We also can be able to rotate around our cube. So how can we do that? We have to click the middle mouse button, otherwise known as our scroll wheel. Middle mouse equals scroll wheel. So click the middle mouse button, and you're going to move your mouse up, down, left, right. Just like that. Now let's go over this again. In order to zoom in and out, scroll the middle. Use your scroll wheel, middle mouse button, to scroll up and down. You can hear it right here. That I'm scrolling. So if you hear this sound, you're on the right track. Okay? All right. And if you want to rotate around Blender, click the middle mouse button and move up, down, left, right. Click the middle mouse button. Don't scroll with the middle mouse button, but click it. Press down on it, you know? And you can be able to rotate around Blender. Okay? Now, once we have that, we have to know how to pan. What is panning? Basically, it's where we're moving up, down, left, and right without rotating. So let me show you how to do that. Press the Shift button, which is on the left side of your keyboard at the bottom. S-H-I-F-T, and it might have an arrow next to it, so press that button and click down on the middle mouse button and move up, down, left, right. This is panning. Very good, very good. Now if we want to zoom in and out with a little bit more control, press the Control, otherwise known as CTRL, on the bottom left side of your keyboard. Click the middle mouse button and move your mouse up and down to zoom in and out. And don't worry about your mouse escaping out of Blender, because Blender will automatically teleport your mouse back into Blender. So keep that in mind. You don't have to worry too much about your mouse escaping. So yeah, and if it happens, don't worry. You can always move your mouse back to Blender. Okay? Now, with that, we should be able to move around in Blender. If by any chance you're still lost at moving around, please repeat that part of the video where I show you zooming in, Shift middle mouse to pan, Control click the middle mouse button to zoom in and out slowly, and then hold the middle mouse button only just to rotate. And you can even, like, as you're practicing, you'll eventually like get used to like moving around in the 3D view just like this, okay? And in order to select objects, it's basically just left clicking. That's it. Just like how you would click buttons on the website, it's just left click. That's it. Now, let's learn more about moving and rotating the object itself. This is where the tool tab will come in. And as you can see, they're all right here. 3D cursor. This is basically, we can click on this and we can be able to move around the 3D cursor with the left mouse button. So we don't have to worry about that. Let's just put that back to the center. It's not perfect. If you ever want to reset it, we're going to press on Shift S, and then we're going to click on cursor to world origin, and that's it. You don't really need to. There's other settings around, but don't get too intimidated by this. You literally just need this one. That's it. That's literally it. You don't really, like I said, you don't really have to move the 3 cursor around. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But let's click on the move button. This is where you can be able to use the arrows to move around your object. And if you want to reset the position, like, you know, where it's at, if you want to put it back to normal and you're still in movement, just click on the right mouse button and it'll just reset it. Just like that. This also applies when you rotate. So if I'm rotating the object, just right click and it'll reset. Just like this. You can also scale and click this around and just scale it. Basically making it bigger or smaller. And then click on right mouse button to reset. You can also have transform, which will basically have all of them together. If you want specific if you have specific needs for what you're trying to do, you can just focus on this. But transform view has all of them right there. You can also use buttons as well in case it gets too intimidating. So press the S button to scale. Press the R button to rotate. and double press the R button to have more free rotation. You can always toggle it anytime you want, like this. R, R, like that. R for rotate, S for scale. Press the G key to grab it, otherwise known as moving, but in order to remember easily, it's G for grabs, okay? If you want to reset your positioning, press the Alt button on the left side of your keyboard and either do Alt R to reset rotation, Alt S to reset your scale, and Alt G to reset your, your position. Basically where you grabbed it and you let go at. So that's pretty much it for the moving. Now before the end of this tutorial, let's do a quick navigation of the edit mode. So let's switch from object mode to edit mode right at the top left part of our screen. You can always toggle this by pressing the tab button if you want to have a much more faster toggle. But of course you can always change it if you don't really like shortcuts, so keep that in mind. Now I want to quickly go over before we end this off. I want to just quickly go over just the parts of a 3D model. So you have something called vertices. These are just points. So remember what I taught you about moving the object? Well, basically this will apply when moving around your points. Press the G key to move around your vertices, just like this. And you could use scale, but there really isn't no difference unless you were to select. If you want to select more than one thing, hold the shift button and click on something to select more than one thing. Use the control CTRL to deselect something, okay? But you can always still use the shift button and just re-click the object if you just want to deselect. So yeah, and you can use the S key to scale it, just like that. Those are vertices. If you want to change different modes of selection, you can click on vertices up here, vertex select, and then you can select edges, where the vertices will no longer be there and you can just move around your edges, like this, with the G key. You can always scale it with the S key or even rotate with the R key. You can also select faces, which are basically just these points right here. These are your faces. Just like that. And yes, you're gonna get some really funny shapes, but yeah. Now, as I said also, depending on the mode you're on, these little tabs here will end up changing. But as I said, we will go over some very important shortcuts. But of course, there might be some times where, like I said, shortcuts might be too intimidating and you might easily forget. So always check out these little windows, those little tab things to help you out with finding the, what you want to do better. So let's say we were going to delete. Let's say we want to delete something, right? In order to delete something, press the X button and select only faces for this case. But you can always select vertices, Control Z to undo, and then you can do X and only faces, like that. If you want to redo something, you could do Control Shift Z if you want to get it back. If you are to redo something, which if you can check the edit tab right here, if you click the edit button you can redo, but since I was in the newest change, I can't really redo. So you can always just do Control Z and then Control Shift Z, or just Shift Control Z to redo. Basically either combination, as long as the 3 buttons are pressed, you should be good, right? But if you hit the Z button, you can still change your views though, so keep that in mind. There's 2 ways to change your views, so yeah. We'll stick to solid mode for now on though. So yeah. Now I will end the video right here. Now for the next part of the tutorial, I will go more in depth on edit mode, and eventually after edit mode for the next tutorial I'll go over some shortcuts that you guys will definitely need to memorize for edit mode. We'll go over that for the next episode, and then after that episode I will start going a little bit more in depth on the different tabs. I'll just kind of give you a brief introduction to some of the tabs, and then after that Depending on how things are, maybe we'll start getting into modeling basics or stuff like that. It really depends on the flow of the guide. But that's pretty much all you guys really need to know for at least the first part of this. You can go ahead while these episodes are still being produced. You can still go on and check out other guides. You can contact me on Discord if you need advice or you need like a private tutor for Blender. Let me know. But other than that, this should at least help you get started with like learning how to edit your stuff. So right now you can edit. I'll also leave you another thing as well. If you want to add more to your objects, just press the E button to extrude and just add more to your stuff. And then you could just like, you know, modify your stuff from there on. But until then, keep an eye out for the next episode, or if the other episode is already uploaded and all that, you can check out that episode. So that way it can help you learn more about modeling and stuff. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this helps you understand Blender a bit more. Please let me know if you're still confused on something. Please let me know. Every time you comment, it'll really help me help you. If you're still struggling but you don't want to comment, that's understandable, as I said. If you don't feel comfortable posting publicly, like I said, you have Twitter. I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram, I have Discord. I also have an email as well if you need that. So let me know if you ever need any help on Blender. Whether it's from this tutorial or if it's beyond Blender, let me know if you need help on that. But yeah, keep eye out for episode 2 on edit mode, so we'll go more in depth on this. And yeah, this is Kanahuiko, and this is the first episode of Let's Dumbify Blender, learning at least most of the 3D view, and I'll be seeing you guys next time for the next episode, okay? Huiko, 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 sayonara everybody! Bye bye!